Your heart beats with a chip. Your pancreas negotiates with an algorithm. Your eye converts light into code with a camera. And you look in the mirror and think, am I still me, or are my devices a shared living being? We didn't save this question for the next century. We have already fallen into it. When the story of the first implantable pacemaker was told in 1958, comparing that era's surgical culture to today brings one sentence to mind. The problem is not just technology. The problem is speed. Because once a device enters the body, it is no longer a technical part. It becomes a page of a biography. Hello friends, I am here in this video to tell you this. The boundary between human and machine is becoming increasingly blurred. Yes, but this blurring is happening through clinical reality, not sci-fi effects. Quietly. The most cyborg person in the world might not be someone walking around with a metal helmet on their head. Sometimes, the most cyborg person in the world can be someone carrying a small device in their heart, trying to make it home for dinner. Think of it like a two-lane highway. The first lane is mechanical and electronic. Pacemakers, defibrillators, heart support pumps, closed-loop insulin systems. The second lane is biological and bioengineering. Tissues produced from the patient's own cells. Structures grown on scaffolds. Live tissue parts produced with 3D bioprinting. These two lanes are heading toward the same goal. Not just repairing the body, but redesigning it. Let's start with the heart. A pacemaker is actually a simple idea. It monitors the heart's rhythm and provides electrical stimulation when necessary. But simple ideas change the world, and that's the case here. Moreover, today, new generation leadless pacemakers can eliminate the wire and be placed directly inside the heart. This changes both the surgical approach and the types of complications. We used to describe our hearts poetically as broken. Now our hearts can literally give an error code. And this error code can be seen as a log not only by the doctor, but also by the manufacturer. This is why the human-machine boundary is blurry. Because as soon as the boundary goes under the skin, law goes in, security goes in, and privacy goes in. Now let's move on to the pancreas. What we call an artificial pancreas is often not plug and play like a real organ. It's more like a team game. A sensor that continuously measures glucose, a pump that delivers insulin, and the decision-making algorithm between them. The loop closes here. Glucose rises, the system adjusts the dose. Glucose falls, the system hits the brakes. These systems are noted in clinical trials and real life for benefits such as increasing time in range for glucose and reducing hypoglycemia. The thought-provoking aspects are here. If an algorithm manages your blood sugar, where does the will begin and end? The decision to eat is yours, but whose hand is on the result of the meal in the body? Is it you, the device, or the union of both of you? What we call a human is perhaps not just a brain that makes decisions. It is how the decision manifests in the body. Let's come to bionic limbs. What we call bionic arms and legs is a translation line established between the motor, sensor, software, and the nervous system. The most classic method is reading the electrical activity of muscles with surface electrodes and controlling the prosthesis with this signal. But the field is not content with this. With surgical techniques like targeted muscle reinnervation, nerve signals are made more readable, and in some systems, an attempt is made to restore some of the sense of touch by providing feedback to the nerve. In more advanced examples, surgical approaches like the agonist-antagonist myoneural interface and accompanying bionic limb control have been demonstrated to mimic the neuromuscular cycle of a continuous movement like walking. The critical word here is continuous. That is, not a one-time command, but a control flowing into the body's rhythm. And the most interesting part is this. Scientists are now not only giving back movement, but also trying to measure the feeling of, this is my limb. This is called prosthetic embodiment. It has dimensions like the sense of ownership and the sense of agency. So, does your brain consider that device an external tool, or does it incorporate it into the body schema? This is exactly where the human-machine boundary blurs. Because the boundary is not a screw line, it is a perception line. Let's look at the eyes. Retina implants roughly do this. They take the image with a camera, process it, and stimulate the retina or related nerve tissue with electricity. Systems like Argus 2 received approval from the FDA under a humanitarian use exemption. However, serious debates subsequently arose regarding issues like the product's sustainability, maintenance, and support. This event reminded us that technology entering the body does not just end with surgery. It is a story of support that can last for decades. Now we come to the brain, because at the most sensitive part of the boundary is the brain. What we call neuroimplants is actually not new. Devices like cochlear implants have been supporting hearing by stimulating the auditory nerve for years, and we are talking about hundreds of thousands of recipients worldwide. Deep brain stimulation places electrodes in specific brain regions for diseases like Parkinson's and provides electrical stimulation. Now, this field is shifting to the adaptive idea. Listen to the brain signal, adjust the stimulation accordingly. Some clinical and methodological publications discuss how this approach is programmed, which signals are targeted, and personalization challenges. So the idea of a brain pacemaker you carry with you ceases to be a metaphor and turns into an engineering design. Brain-computer interfaces. What we call BCI is a system that measures the brain's electrical activity and translates it into a command. This measurement can be made from the scalp, from inside a vessel, with a surface electrode placed on the brain, or with microelectrodes inside the brain. As invasiveness increases, signal quality tends to increase, but other costs, such as surgical risks and long-term durability, come into play. Issues such as long-term implant performance, stability, and security are the most critical bottlenecks of this field. Let's give a concrete example. In a study published in Nature in 2021, signals taken from the motor cortex were decoded into text by analyzing mental handwriting movements. Such studies turn the idea of writing with thought from a romantic sentence into an engineering problem. In 2023, examples moving from speech intention signals toward faster and wider vocabularies were published in the vein of Nature. In an example published in NEJM in 2024 and trackable via PubMed, the accuracy and calibration speed of a system that produces text from speech intention signals and translates it back into voice with voice synthesis in a condition like ALS was discussed. For someone saying, "My voice is gone," this means the device works like an organ. Now we move to the future part, and here we will do two things at once. We will both be hopeful and remain skeptical, because science proceeds with evidence, not love. What I call the near future is the next 5 to 10 years. The expected trend here is more closed loop, more personal, less invasive. The fact that algorithms learn better, sensors become more reliable, and indications expand in closed-loop diabetes systems is one example of this. The increase in methodology and clinical studies for adaptive approaches in deep brain stimulation is part of the same wave. In bionic limbs, the goal of better nerve interfaces and better embodiment is becoming clear. What I call the distant future is 15 to 25 years and beyond. There are two possibilities here. First, progress focused on therapy. That is, the return of lost function, vision, hearing, movement, communication. Second, a shift toward enhancement, better memory, faster attention, longer endurance. The very existence of this second possibility is a social minefield, because the line between therapy and enhancement is sometimes as thin as a regulation clause, a marketing sentence, or an insurance policy. UNESCO's Neurotechnology Ethics Framework contains warnings especially in areas like children and non-therapeutic use. The OECD's recommendation on responsible innovation in neurotechnology also emphasizes principles like values, security, privacy, and inclusivity. Let's come to the issue of identity. If parts of the body can change, what is it that we call I? Philosophy here fluctuates between two extremes, those who say I am my body and those who say I am a stream of consciousness. But modern neuroscience whispers this to us. I is as much the feedback of the signal as the signal itself. If you feel a prosthesis belongs to your body, that prosthesis has, in a sense, entered your body schema. This forces us to think of identity not just as biological material, but as a weave of experience. The issue of free will is even more complicated. Because closed-loop systems sometimes act before you do. Before you even feel the symptom, the device catches a signal and intervenes. This is good news, but it also gives rise to the question, who has the decision? And if the decision is with someone, who has the responsibility? For example, if a device controlled by BCI causes an error, is the error in me, in the software, in the training, or in the dataset? There are no definitive answers to these questions, but the world of regulation exists precisely to manage these uncertainties. Clinical evaluation, risk management, traceability, and post-market follow-up. Privacy. I will raise my voice a little here, because this issue is not at the privacy setting level. Nerd data is not just health data. It could also be open to inferences like tendencies, attention, and mood. The UNESCO framework places a special emphasis on nerd data. The European Parliament Research Service's mental privacy assessments also discuss the human rights dimension of this field. In the USA, device cybersecurity, the resistance of a device to malicious access, is now handled as part of the quality system and application content. Additionally, cybersecurity debates and updates for devices like pacemakers have come to the agenda through public institutions and scientific literature in the past. The issue of equality. Bionic limbs, retina implants, BCI systems, total artificial hearts. These are expensive. These are complex. These require specialized centers. Therefore, while these technologies save lives on one hand, they magnify the question of whose life on the other. Who has access? In which country? In which insurance system? In which city? That is why regulation is not enough. Health policy is required. And the sentence, technology is advancing, can sometimes mean inequality is advancing. There is also a very real risk that is not talked about much. Product life can be longer than company life. The Argus 2 example solidified this fear. While there is a device in your body, what happens if that device's software update, part supply, and service network are cut off? This scenario makes one think that a divorce protocol is needed in the marriage of medicine and technology. What will the body do when the device shuts down? What will the user do? And what will the health system do? Now, let's take a short tour of history so we can feel what speed means. 1958, pacemaker turning point. 2 dizer 6. The example of a tissue-engineered ladder made from the patient's own cells showed that the idea of an organ can also be built biologically. 2016, FDA approval of the leadless pacemaker, the entry of miniaturization into the clinic. 2019, closed-loop insulin systems approached the mainstream with major clinical publications. 2024, high-performance examples in the field of BCI and neuroprosthetics and visibility in the media increased. 2025, UNESCO Neurotechnology Ethics Framework arrived. So, in just 5 to 10 years, technology ceased to be a device and began to be a culture. So what will happen next? Let me draw 3 scenes for you. A paralyzed person writes, speaks, or manages a robotic arm with thought. A person with Parkinson's is more stable during the day with adaptive stimulation. A person with diabetes sleeps not with the fear of nocturnal hypoglycemia, but with more confidence. A person experiencing vision loss can select letters again. This scene is real, in varying degrees and limits, but real. The second scene is the gray scenario. The device works, but it also changes you. Sometimes positive, sometimes strange. It changes your habits. It changes your risk perception. It changes your self-perception. As prosthetic embodiment increases, the fear of losing the device also turns into a kind of sense of loss. Here, when technology enters the body, it also enters the psychology. The third scene is the bad scenario. Your device is not supported. It is not updated. There is a cybersecurity vulnerability. Data is misused, or access is so expensive that new classes such as the repaired and the upgraded form in society. I am not saying this scene will definitely happen, but it is possible. And because it is possible, it is worth talking about today. Now, when we say the human-machine boundary is blurring, we are actually saying this. The number of actors who have a say in the management of the body is increasing. In the past, there was the body and the doctor. Now there is the body, the doctor, the device, the software, the manufacturer, the data infrastructure, the regulatory body, and the insurance system. This is not just medicine, it is a socio-technical network. In such a network, the question of who am I is no longer a question of philosophy alone. It is also a question of engineering, law, and society. And the final. I will not give you an answer. I will leave you a question. When a part of your body is managed by an algorithm one day, who will choose the values of that algorithm? To whom will the signal collected by an implant belong? To you, to the hospital, or to the company? If your device receives an update, are you considered to have received an update too? When a prosthesis is truly felt to belong to your body, is its breaking the breaking of an object or the injury of a limb? And the hardest question. If there is a limit to being human, is that limit above the skin, below the skin, or where decisions and experiences are woven? You can follow my Blue Glass channel for videos like this. See you in the next video. Goodbye.